everybody. Hi. Hi, I'm Alison Arngrim, and this is the Alison Arngrim Show. Okay, some of you may probably recognize me as evil Nellie Olson from Little House on the Prairie, but tonight I am Alison Arngrim, and this is the Alison Arngrim Show. And here on the Alison Arngrim Show, we talk about things that make us feel good, the TV shows and the movies that made us feel good, and the people who made them, and people who are doing things now to make the world a better and more interesting place. And I have a doozy tonight. So I find out that this man, he's written a book, and I go, oh, that's nice. And then I read the resume. I am not making this up. I am not making this up. These numbers, this is just a few of the things he has done. He has directed 22 American Music Awards, 8 Academy Awards, Oscars, seven Screen Actors Guild Awards, 3 Emmys, 3 Golden Globes Red Carpet Specials, 3 TV Land Awards, 2 Daytime Emmy Award Series, 2 Academy of Country Music Awards telecasts, the feature film, Richard Pryor Live in Concert, plus numerous television specials, including NBC Christmas and Rockefeller Center specials. He also the Miss America pageant. If you've seen an award show, you've seen his work. And now he's written a book about all of this and all of the, like, just insane number of celebrities he has worked with. It is absolutely marvelous. And it is indeed called We're Live in 5. What it couldn't be a better title. The dazzling Hollywood memoir. It is, ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Margolis.
Hi, Alison.
Hi, how are
Alison.
you?
Fine. It's so nice to see you.
This is great. The fascinating thing for me is not just like, okay, I thought, oh, yes, that's right, he directed Word. And then I'm reading how many Oscar ceremonies and Emmy ceremonies you directed. And it's staggering that one person directed and produced that many shows. But the funny part that struck me is apparently this is what you actually wanted to do even as a child.
I did. I tell the story in the book. My dad was in the electronics business, and when I was 5 years old, he brought home this little box with a piece of glass on the front of it, and he plugged it into the wall, and there were people inside there, and I was fascinated, tried to figure out how they got in there and why they were so small and if they came out and all that. Anyway, that started my fascination with television, and never stopped. By the time I was in high school, I said, one day I want to direct the Academy Awards. That was my dream.
And that's so crazy because people say, oh, I wanted to direct movies or I wanted to be a TV star. And then you literally wanted to direct the Oscars.
I watched it on TV and there was something that just fascinated me about it. All of the glamour and glory and glitz and good music. And there was just something about it. And it was like the tip of the iceberg. It was like the top of the hill. It was like, it was just everything. I one day wanted to get there. I wanted to work my way up to it, and I knew that I had to do that. I was looking forward to that. But anyway, I got there.
Absolutely amazing. And in reading, of course, you got to work with everyone to the point that you have, Billy Crystal doing the foreword to your book. No small feat. But I have to ask, yes, you admit that indeed you were working the Oscars the night someone thought it would be a good idea to have Rob Lowe dance with Snow White.
Well, it was a good idea at the time. It looked great on paper.
No, at the time. It's one of those nights.
No, Alan Carr, may he rest in peace. I don't know if you know about Alan Carr, but
yes,
yeah, he produced Grease. And he had a Broadway hit called La Cage aux Folles, and he was big, 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 always thinking big.
Everything was huge with Alan Carr. Everything was giant and glam. The big glasses and the caftans and everything is over the top and glitter and explosions, and it had to be bigger. Like Liberace was tame and far too subtle for Alan Carr. He wasn't really dressing it up enough.
Well, he wanted this opening production number to be the biggest number that had ever been on television. And when we started out, the number was about 25 minutes long. And I said to Alan, I know you've never done live television, so let me just help you here. A 25-minute opening production number doesn't work on television.
That's an entire show. They can't do 25-minute opening number.
Well, we got it down. Alan and I brought in Marvin Hamlish to be the music director on the show. And Marvin was really good. Marvin knew how to speak to Alan and get him to come down a little bit, cut things down. So we cut the opening number down. And it looked like a good idea for Rob Lowe and Snow White to just have a moment there in this opening number. And like I said, it looked great on paper, but it didn't quite work out the way we all thought it would. But you win some, you don't.
But of course, people are still talking about it 8 million years later. So clearly, it did. It was
Yeah.
memorable. That was for sure. It
I
was
mean,
funny.
everybody,
I laughed. I thought it was a hoot. I went, well, okay, they're doing a send up. I don't know.
well, everybody still refers to it as the Rob Lowe Snow White number. And that was, just a small little piece of it. But anyway, it did make a mark. And, the Oscars is a show that the journalists love to hate. So they always, the first thing you always read about the Oscars is the thing that didn't work or the thing that was
Yes.
wrong or,
Who snubbed? Who should have won? Who did not? Etc.
right.
And that's an interesting question because I've noticed that I have sometimes watched the Oscars and gone, yeah, that one was a little slower, long. And then other nights I've watched the Oscars. I mean, I grew up watching the Oscars, got family of actors. I'll watch and go, wow, now that was really good this year. That was really fast paced. They kept it moving. There were some funny moments. And the next day they'll say, oh, it was the worst Oscars ever. And I'm like, really? Because I don't think so.
I know.
So how does that work? As someone who's actually there making the thing, has actually done it, well, 7 times, who's done it that many times and been on the production and the directing end, how is that no matter what you do for those 3.5 hours, that there's something that no one is satisfied? What is that impulse?
I don't know. It's been there from the beginning. Somebody just wants to. There are a lot of good things about the Oscar telecast, and a lot of it depends on what the movies were during the year. That really determines how we put the show together and who's there and all that. But for some reason, people love to write about whatever the biggest thing was on the Oscars that went wrong. That's just the way it is. But
it's bound to be long because you've got so many awards movies and they've done everything saying, well, we'll put the technical people over here. We'll make a separate for this. And it still runs long. But I think it would, which movies were nominated would impact it because some years the nominated films are also box office hits and everybody at home saw them. And other years they're just not. They were very artsy and fabulous, but just not a lot of people saw them. And so it's a completely different group of people watching. So that has to have an effect on it.
Absolutely. It absolutely does. It's a very difficult show to put together, whether the movies are good or not. If they're good, you have a better chance of doing it. Oh, and by the way, the show always runs long because you can never predict how long an acceptance speech is going to be. We ask the nominees to please, if they win, please keep their speeches to 45 seconds.
That's really short.
It's not. If you look at the second hand on your watch and look at 45 seconds, or you think about in your head, think about a thank you speech. The problem is that I think when winners get up there, they think, I can't remember who said it. It might have been Julia Roberts who said, listen, this is my shot. I might never get up here again. So I have a lot of people to thank. A lot of people helped me get up here, and I'm going to thank everybody. And that's what happens. And we understand that. So that's why we say try and keep your speech to 45 seconds. Some people figure out a way to do it. Some people say, I want to thank everybody I ever met in my life from the time I was 8 years old until tonight.
And like if they don't thank every single person at the agency as well as all the producers, someone's going to yell at them tomorrow and it becomes a thing. And then I've seen people where they go, okay, that was great. And they start playing them off and they go, shut up, don't play me off. And they just keep talking. And what are you going to do? Physically drag some huge star off the stage?
No, there's nothing you can do. And that's why the show is supposed to be 3.5 hours in length, and you try and plan it out. You figure out when you're doing the show, each hour, I don't know if your viewers will understand this, but each hour spreads about 3 to 4 minutes. sometimes even longer than that. So when you're putting the show together, you make your hours shorter as far as program material is concerned. You make your time
You're
shorter.
shooting for much
So,
sure. You're scripting it as like, okay, 51 minutes.
well, there's 44 minutes of program time in an hour. That's usually what it is with all the commercials and everything. And so when you put the show together, you put together 40 minutes of program time, for example, and you leave for 4 minutes of spread. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So you do the best you can. But you know what? It's not how long the show is or how short it is, it's how good it is. And when the show's good, nobody cares how long it is. It's true.
If someone goes crazy and gives a long speech, but it's one of those insane, hilarious, memorable speeches that nobody ever, then they don't care. They don't care if they're up all night. Yeah.
And if the show, everybody knows, is supposed to be 3.5 hours, the only ones who really get sort of annoyed is the sponsors who buy commercial time in hour 3 and they end up in hour 4. They don't want to be there. So that's where you have the problem. But if it's a good show, nobody notices or cares.
Now, the ones that you worked on, were those also ones that Bruce Valanche was doing the writing on?
Bruce Valanche was the writer, yes. And
Everyone
those
keeps it.
shows, we call those shows the glory years. I mean, those shows were really, really good. The movies were great, and the 5 nominated songs were always good. So we got good artists performing. And Debbie Allen was the choreographer. And I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but
Oh, yeah.
she's a brilliant choreographer. And she always put together all the production numbers, and they were big and beautiful. And um, they were always just very, very entertaining. And the shows were terrific. The shows were just terrific those years. And Bruce Valanche is very funny.
Yeah, Bruce Valanche, yeah, I think it's not possible for Bruce Valanche to write a non-joke to not be funny, that no matter what you're doing, if you've got Bruce Valanche writing the jokes, you're going to have something.
Well, you just look at him and laugh. He's so fun to look at. He always has a different pair of glasses on that match the T-shirt he's wearing.
The T-shirt collection. That he has hundreds and hundreds of T-shirts. No, he's a riot. And so
And his shoes always match his glasses, and so that's the other part of it.
There's been so many changes. I mean, how many best pictures do we have now? Didn't we used to have 5? We have now 10. I can't keep track.
I know. We used to have
Is that
5.
a good idea? Do we know?
I don't know. I don't know whose idea it was, and if they think it's good. If the Academy thinks it's good, then that's the way it'll be. But and that makes the show longer. But maybe there are, like what Alan and I did that first year we did the Oscars, is we decided that all 5 nominees are really winners. So we were the ones that said, when the presenter opens the envelope, we don't want him to say, and the winner is anymore. We want him to say, and the Oscar goes to. Because the other 4 nominees were winners as well, because they got nominated. So the Oscar goes to, instead of, and the winner is.
And a lot of actors have talked about that it's one thing to say, yes, I'm being honored with an Oscar, but winner did make it sound like sort of just this cheesy competition, like we're like fighting over this, and we don't want that. They didn't want to feel like that they were making the others losers.
And listen, if you really look at a lot of the speeches, not only on the Oscars, but a lot of the other award shows, the winner always thanks or talks about the amount of respect they have for the other nominees that were in their category. So, they're always mentioned and acknowledged. But almost every award show now says, and the Oscar goes to, and the Emmy goes to, and the Grammy goes to, and the American Music Award goes to, everybody's kind of taken that on. The other problem that the Oscars always has, which is interesting, is we do this wonderful in memoriam package where we pay tribute to all the people in the movie industry who have left us during the year. And the first phone call we get the day after the Oscars, we go to the office.
They wait till morning. Yeah.
The first phone call is from some family member of somebody who felt that they were left out of the in memoriam package.
Yeah, but
Hey,
my publicist Harlan Bowl sits there and goes, and as soon as he goes, he
yeah.
immediately knows who they've left out. He goes, oh no, oh no, my phone's gonna ring, because somebody always gets left out. So, and sometimes it's like a huge star. Somebody is always left out.
You do the best you can. There are so many puzzle pieces that it takes to put, it's really a jigsaw puzzle to put this show together. You try and acknowledge everybody in every aspect of movie making that you can. And you just do the best you can. There are a lot of people involved. There are a lot of cooks in the kitchen on the Oscars. I mean, it comes down to the producer and director at the last minute, but it takes 4, 5, 6 months to put that show together. And there's a lot. There's just a lot. Most award shows, I think the Oscars is sort of the queen mom. It always has been. But all award shows are very difficult to put together. They really are. You try and remember everybody and remember everything and make it entertaining. And we do these shows for the people who watch them on television. Even though we're doing them for the audience in the room, we're really doing them for the millions and millions of people who watch them on television. So we do the best we can. That's all you can do.
Well, and then the Emmys have gotten even more complicated because now I just, everything has changed so drastically. You have, the Emmys, they talk about, well, when is your show on? When would you like it to be on? There's no time slot. There's no pilot season. It's like, when is it on? Well, all 8 episodes are on right now if you push the button. And you have movies. Well, and of course, during the pandemic, when you couldn't go to the theater, we had movies. Was that a theatrical release? Well, they had to show it on Netflix and Amazon because the movie theater was closed, but we're still having the Oscars. So then is that an Emmy? Is that an Oscar? And it must become horrendously confusing. I know I've talked to people who work for the Academy, and they're just like pulling their hair out in clumps. And then to do that show, because the Emmys, there's now 8 bazillion categories. There's multiple Emmys. There's people just say, oh, well, there's the daytime Emmys and the evening Emmys. No, there's the family Emmys and the technical Emmys and the this Emmys. There's like 7 different Emmys.
People love award shows. They really do. And I don't know why there's so many categories on the Emmys. I don't really understand, but I don't know. The Academy makes those decisions, and that's the way it is. The academies or the guilds or whatever it is make the decisions, and they tell us producers what they would like on the show, and we have to try and accommodate them to the
You're
best of
trying to
our ability.
translate then what is going on with all these people. Like, well, we need these people to be seen and this to happen, and somehow translate that to make it watchable for a person who is not in show business and does not personally know any of these people or their agents that they're thanking, and keep them involved for 3 hours.
And these shows now are not just done for the United States of America; they're done worldwide. And so you have to keep that in mind as well. There are countries that translate. They put lower thirds on the screen and in whatever language they're watching it in. So you have to think about that. There's so many things to think about. These shows are so complicated. They're so much fun, though. I mean, they're so much fun when you see them on the air and they work. Everything works. It's successful. It's really a tremendous feeling. It's such a high.
And you've done all the time from the Emmys, the Oscars, and not only the American Music Awards and the Country Music Awards. I mean, do you feel a difference? Do you have to shift gears when you're doing the Country Music Awards as opposed to the other music awards or the Emmys versus the Oscars? Is there a different mindset or atmosphere at these shows?
There is. You do have to shift gears. I mean, the audience that watches the Country Music Awards, a lot of them watch the American Music Awards and vice versa, but you have to sort of design your show based on the music that you're presenting. And country music is presented differently than, pop music or hip hop or rock and roll, whatever the genre of music is. So, yeah, you do shift gears. And the Oscars is all about motion pictures, and the Emmys is all about television. So you have to shift gears there as well.
Now, one of the biggest shifts you did, and I was funny because as I was reading your book, I was, oh, the Miss America pageant. And growing up as a little kid, even I thought the Miss America pageant was kind of seemed sort of silly. There was archaic because it was late 60s, early 70s. And you were the one when they changed that and said, we're not going to do women in bathing. When did you last see a woman walking around in a bathing suit with nylons and high heels? This does not happen. And when they changed it, I went, oh, how they finally figured that out. And you literally are the one who said, when did you last go to the beach and see a woman in a bathing suit and high heels and nylons? What are we doing?
That's exactly what I said. The executive producer was a gentleman named Leonard Horn. And I said to him, he hired me because the pageant needed to be sort of updated.
Oh, yeah.
It was getting old and tired. And so he said to me, you've got to make these major changes, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have fans that have been watching the show since it first went on the air, and people have Miss America parties and they watch the show for this reason. And he said, but you got to change it. You got to make it different. I said, okay, that's a really interesting challenge.
Change it, but don't change
But
it too much.
don't change it. So anyway, I said to him, tell me when the last time you went to the beach or went around a swimming pool and you saw some college age woman or any woman wearing nylons and high heels. And he said, yeah, but and that. So I said, that's one of the changes I wanted to make. He said, I've got to get it approved by the board. I said, well, who's on the board? And he said, state pageant directors from all over the country. I said, well, what's the average age? And he said, about 60. I said, not going to happen. You got to think out of the box, Leonard. You got to support me here. We got to be able to make those kind of changes. So anyway, it took a couple of years. The first year I called it cosmetic changes. We built a new set and we did new lighting. We changed all the graphics and updated the music and all that. And then slowly but surely each year I tried to make a change that was significant, but wouldn't have the tried and true fans say, oh, I can't watch the show anymore because of that.
And it's so crazy because at one point, and people were saying, is the Miss America pageant? It's completely, we can't possibly have this. It's too silly. But the pageant said, well, no, we are giving people college scholarships and they're discussing their actual accomplishments. It's not just a swimsuit thing. But then there's this pageant world. And I know people from that pageant world, they're like, no, the high heels, because there's a specific skill to walk in a high heel and the line of the back and the leg and the thing. And this is a specific thing that people learn how to do. And that's part of the thing. I'm like, oh, yeah. But so how do you do that? Because the average viewer, well, they want to be pretty, but they wanted then at that point, people were saying, no, we want it to be more than that. We don't want it just to be a bunch of girls in swimsuits. We can see that anywhere. Is this about their college or what?
Well, pageants, the beauty pageants were always referred to as tits and ass competitions. I mean, that's what they called them. And Miss America was the first pageant that you could apply for a scholarship from the Miss America organization and you didn't have to be in the competition. You didn't have to be on television. Yeah. So the Miss America organization was the first organization that offered college age women an opportunity to get scholarships. So that made it, and you have to learn how to walk in your bare feet and present yourself just as much as you do high heels. Really, leave the high heels for the evening gowns. That's when you normally dress up
right
like that. And leave the bare feet for the beach and the swimming pool, which is how you go swimming.
Sporty. Then it's sporty, not so much we're parading them around as a sex thing. It's like, well, maybe they swim.
Well, also, the Miss America organization started the last competition, which was the interview questions.
Right.
And in the beginning, people used to make fun of any answer that any woman gave. How are you going to change. The questions were always, how are you going to change the world as Miss America? How are
I
you going
want to help all the poor children in the world.
to?
No, I mean, well, I
Right.
mean, I used to watch, and of course, we would sit around and put things on our head and like read off that we would parody the thing in the living room while we watched it. We thought it was hilarious.
But if you watched it the years that we did it and changed it and everything, you saw that it really became about what it was. It was sort of more of the inner beauty. You know, people would say that the Miss America women aren't as attractive as the Miss USA or Miss Universe women. Well, yes, they were. Yes, they were. They were just smart too, you know. So, anyway, it was an interesting challenge. All of these things are challenges. When somebody says to you, you've got to make it different, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's a big challenge. It's difficult to try and do that, but we do it. You know, we figure out a way and we do it.
Well, and I've wondered, I mean, as over the last few years with the changes of how television is broadcast, how movies are broadcast, how people see women, how they see men, what's a supporting actor, what's a lead actor, what does this mean, what does that mean now, and everything's so different that award shows, all of them. I mean, we look at how people release their albums, and it's like, well, I put it out on Spotify, I put it out
I
via
know.
Snapchat. It's like, what is anything? All of the parameters that we based all of our award shows on have all shifted and gone and moved. And do you feel that the award shows in and of themselves are an endangered species in any way, or can they adapt to this world we're in now?
We try. We try every year. It becomes more and more difficult because there are so many outlets for younger people to view things and listen to things, like you mentioned Spotify, and there's Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, and you know, the list goes on and on and on. You can see anything you want anytime you want to. So it's tough to get an audience. It's more difficult to get younger people to watch certain things on television, and award shows don't have the types of audiences, that as large an audience as they once had, because people just aren't, either the movies aren't good enough, or the television shows aren't interesting enough, or there's too many of them to choose from, or you
Too
don't have
many.
time to watch an award show because you're watching, you know, 27 other things on 27 other outlets. I don't know.
And
It's just
And they
every
were
day.
goals for fame. I remember as a kid, everybody, you'd watch the Oscars and the Emmys, you'd have your shampoo bottle and go, and I'd like to thank the Academy. And I mean, I used to watch the Las Floristas Ball, put the sofa cushions on my head and walk around the room. I loved award shows. And, but things have changed. It's like you would watch those and go, perhaps one day I shall be Miss America or win an Emmy or win thing. But there's so many venues now, I think, for people to become famous. People can well, I'll have a YouTube channel. So that's not the only outlet to stand in front of your parents in America and say, I won. There's so many other ways to do it now. It's not getting the same vibe from young people.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, look at what YouTube offers you, or TikTok, or Snapchat, or any of those things. You know, that's how Justin Bieber was discovered. You know that story.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so there are a lot of pieces of talent that have gotten discovered by doing something on their own on one of these outlets. There are just so many different ways of being entertained today. I mean, the world has changed. The world changes so rapidly, and our business changes rapidly, and you have to keep up with it. And award shows right now are just not what they were once upon a time. I mean, people used to, they couldn't wait for
Mhm.
the Miss America pageant. They
We had
couldn't
everybody
wait
would
for
come
the
over, we'd make snacks. And yeah.
couldn't wait for the Academy Awards, couldn't wait for the Emmy Awards. And it's just not like that anymore, unfortunately. So you have to try that much harder to make your show that much more appealing to a younger audience. You know, everybody wants a younger audience watching their product. And the advertisers want that. You know, they want people with money to see their product advertised on television and be
Right.
able to go out and buy it. True.
So it's fascinating to watch the evolution, but as I'm seeing, as I said, from reading your records here, my God, it's like you did produce and direct most of my favorite ones. That emphasis. I go, I love that one. So that's really cool.
Well,
You also
I'm glad I could do that for you.
you did. I was like, oh, I love that. With that particular Oscars, those were fabulous. The number of people you literally in the back of your book, there's a thing. It's like credits, like famous people we've worked with. That's how many pages. Then various assorted credits, and it just goes on for pages and pages and pages and pages. You've worked with really pretty much literally everyone. Um, you did the Richard Pryor movie, the whole Richard Pryor live film.
Right.
That had to have been incredible. And I mean, he was not known for following directions. He tended to, it was, this is what I'm going to do. Is your act written? No, my act will be what it is when I get up and say it. And it's,
Right.
oh, all right then. So, I mean, how do you put that in the bottle and make get it to
Well,
be a movie?
listen, the Richard Pryor live in concert movie was history in the making. I mean, no stand-up comic had ever done like a feature before. I mean, there were
We've
a
done
lot
this.
of
That's right. Now
television.
it's a thing. Nobody done this. Nobody done this.
It was Richard Pryor was the first. The idea was a brand new idea, and Richard. It was really interesting. Richard sort of said, "You guys know what you're doing, and you know how to do it. I'm going to show up. I'm going to walk on stage. I'll be out there for however long, depending on the laughs. You know,
However
comedians
long.
because it's based on the laughs. You get laughs, you go long." I have a great story. Robin Williams came to London. I used to do a show for Prince Charles and Princess Diana. It was called ABC Presents a Royal Gala. And we did it at the famous London Palladium. And Robin Williams was the Charles and Diana loved American talent. So they wanted to see Robin Williams. And Robin Williams came to London with his manager, great guy named David Steinberg, and they set up clubs for Robin to appear in so that he could try out comedy and see how the British audience would react to his comedy because he had never been there before. Anyway, so they did clubs for a week or so. And then Robin did the show, and he was allotted 6 minutes, which is a long time on a 2 hour special. It's a long time for a comedian to get out there and do. So, anyway, he walked out on stage, and the first joke that he told, the place fell apart. People were rolling in the aisles laughing. And he kept going, and 16 minutes later, seriously, he went instead of 6 minutes, he went 16 minutes. And I came back from London and I went to ABC and I presented the show to them and they said, "Hey, it's like, it's like longer than we made our deal for. You know, it's like you got a half hour, you got two songs instead of one song for this performer." And Robin Williams went 16 minutes. And I gave him the show and I said, "You look at the show and tell me what to cut out." And they looked at the show and they said, "You got another half hour."
Yeah, Robin Williams, another one for, oh, we're going to do this way and you're going to end it this time. No.
Right. No,
Robin
no. I mean,
Williams was going to do Robin Williams.
no, comedians live for the laugh. You know that. And Richard Pryor said, "I'll probably do about an hour." And we thought that was fine. And I don't know. I think it was an hour and 30 some odd minutes. And he came out. I didn't know what he was going to do. I had no idea. I saw it for the first time that anybody saw it. And, which is good. I like to do that sometimes. I think I say in the book also, on those shows, I always put myself in the fifth row center and I like to direct the show the way I'm seeing it from there, which is the way the people in the audience see it and the way the people at home see it. So I like seeing Richard Pryor for the first time and shooting it the way I'd want to see it if I were watching it in a theater.
You're being
That's
the
the
eyes and ears of the audience. That makes sense.
right,
Now,
right.
I, of course, have been told that you and Michael Landon, you have a Michael Landon story. You got to hang out with him. So all the Prairie fans tuning in, yes, there's a Michael Landon connection.
Well, listen, the very first live television show that I ever directed was a show called America's Junior Miss. It's not on
I
the air
got
anymore.
Junior Miss. Yes, I
Junior
remember
Miss,
those.
it was the precursor to the Miss America pageant. You know, like Miss Teen USA was
Same
to
thing.
Miss USA. Right. This is the same thing. So I get asked to do this CBS live television show, and I say, "Who's hosting? Do you have a host for the show, or is it up to me to find the host?" Or because I'd never done a live show before, and
Really?
I no, I've never done a live show. I watched America's Junior Miss. I knew that it was on the air. Anyway, they said to me, "We've already booked Michael Landon to be the host," and I said, "Fantastic, Michael Landon? You mean Little
Perfect.
House on the Prairie, Michael Landon?" Anyway, so I met him in Los Angeles. We got to meet and talk before we went to Mobile, Alabama.
Oh, my.
Is where we did America's Junior Miss from. Mobile, Alabama. So anyway, Michael and I met here a couple of times, and we talked about things he wanted to try. He wanted, is it okay if I do this? And once I see the set and see the size of the stage and all that, am I going to be able to try things? I said, of course. We'll talk about them beforehand, and we'll see if they work on camera. And if they do, sure, why not? Anyway, that was my experience with Michael Landon, my very first live television show. He couldn't have been more pleasant. He couldn't have been kinder. You know that.
Well, yeah, and he was also someone who would say, because since he was a director starting back at Bonanza and then all of Little House, he was someone who absolutely said, "I know how this should look, and I have an idea of something I want to do." And if he had an
However,
idea, usually he did it.
however, however, he knew that there was a difference in doing a live television show than doing a film Little House on the Prairie
Smart.
or Bonanza. So he was very open to listening. He understood what I needed as the director, what I needed from him. He understood that and respected it, and it was great. And if he wanted to try something, he would say to me, "I'd like to do this. Will it work for you?" And I would say to him, "Let me see if I can make it work." And I usually did. 99% of the time I did. You always try, and I always try and give the artists what they want. It's my job to make you all look as good and sound as good as I possibly can. I've got your back. That's what I want to do. No, seriously, that's what I want to do. So, yes, there are difficult performers. You know that. There are people that want it their way, and that's it. And you have to learn how to deal with those kind of people and see if you can make the things work. And if you can't, you have to give those people an alternative that will work for both of you. You
Kind of
know,
shoot
so
around them.
right. So
Because, well,
anyway,
that's what they're going to do.
Michael understood that this was not his medium, it was mine, and he respected me as the director, and I respected what he wanted as the artist, and I always do that, and I always make it work. I
And I think
always
he
make
had to have
I always
known
make
that, yeah, he had to have known you were good at what you were doing because that's the thing. Then he would feel secure because, yeah, he can, definitely he had that neck. He would take over a situation, but I'm glad to see he obviously thought this guy knows what he's doing. We're going to go with this. So that's excellent. That's a good marks then.
absolutely. He was great. He was great.
You talk about your family a lot in this book. You talk about your brother, you talk about your father, and you tell a story about doing an award show and that you were concerned because you had to be on your feet and working the whole live thing. And what were you going to do? And your father sent you a gift
Yes.
that he
Uh,
sent you repeatedly. Yes, it became a thing.
Yeah, well, in my family, there was a lot of very pleasant kind of, we were very open and honest about our bathroom habits. Let's put it that way. So I said to my parents when I was going to direct America's Junior Miss Pageant, which was my first live show, I said, well, I'm going to go to the bathroom before the show, and I hope I make it to the end of the show. It was 2 hours live, and I hope I
Right.
make it to the end of the show.
I know the
Anyway,
feeling.
right before we went on the air, about 5 minutes before we went on the air, I got a tap on my shoulder, and it was a production assistant handed me a little box, like a jewelry box, like a ring comes in. And the card on the top of the box said to Jeff from Dad. And I thought, oh, how sweet,
Oh,
sending me
oh,
a little,
nice. Sentimental, lovely gift.
yeah, so lovely. And I opened up the ring box, and there was a cork in there. It was a wine cork and a card that said, listen, in case you have to go to the bathroom, shove this up your ass and maybe it'll hold you. It'll be able to hold you. So it became a running gag. Every single
Sure.
live television show that I've ever done on the air until my dad passed away a couple of years ago. 5 minutes before the show, I'd get a tap on the shoulder, it'd be a production assistant handing me a box. And I would open it, and there'd be a cork in it with the date on it and the same card every time.
So, do you have like a shelf with all of them? You've kept them all, obviously.
I've got them all on display.
Oh,
I've got all the corks, every cork, every cork. Listen, when my father passed away, uh, we were at the cemetery, and the rabbi gathered the family into the special room where you get to see the body right before the box is closed
you
and
win.
take it out to the gravesite. And the rabbi said the prayers that he said, and then he said to the family, is there anybody that has anything to say? And all of his children spoke, and of course I spoke. And I just said a little something, and at the end of my little speech to my dad, I pulled a cork out of my pocket and I put it in his hands. It had the date on it. I put it in his hands. That was my I love you, Dad. Goodbye.
Brilliant, brilliant. I love these kind of stories. And then your brother wound up working in the business. I mean, just this whole the support between all of you is just marvelous to read.
Yeah, my brother has been my associate director for years and years and years. He's the best associate director in the business. And my son, Adam, is a camera operator and a director. And the apple doesn't fall far from the tree there. And my brother's son is a stage manager. So when we all work on shows together, it's a great, so it's
Oh,
so
fantastic.
nice to, yeah, it's great to see the credits roll by and see the name Margolis go by a couple times. No, but what's really great, I felt the first time I worked with my son, the first time he was operating camera on one of my shows, what a feeling it is. I mean, it's hard to express what the feeling is, but you're so proud. And the first time I worked with my brother is my associate director sitting next to me in the control room. I was so proud. It's just, it's great to have family around you all the time.
It's fantastic. Now, what the obvious question? What are you doing now? Obviously, people need to know where to get your book. Where do we get the book? We're live in five.
You can
Has
get
lots of
the
pictures. It's a good read.
you can get the book on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes and Noble. You can get it at Target. You can get it. You can pretty much get it anywhere you want to get it. And
Okay.
it's really a good read, not for people who are in the business, but it's also a great textbook for students who are in film and television. It's a great learning tool, but it's just a fun read. The book is called My Extraordinary Life in Television, and that's what the book is. It's 5 decades, it's 50 years of just my extraordinary life in television. I was blessed with the talent that I have been given, and I was blessed with all the opportunities and all the people I got to meet, the people that I've been able to work with. It's been a blessed life. It's just been wonderful. And I'd like to I'd like to die at 100 years old in a control room somewhere. I'd like to see the credits roll by And when the last credit goes by and the screen fades to black, I can fall over on the console and, and I'll be happy.
And we hear the sound of the cork falling to the floor and rolling off to the.
Right, right.
That's what comes through, because it could be very easily been a dry thing of like, okay, here's the history of the Oscars and the Emmys and award shows, the history of award shows in America.
No.
But your feeling of joy and excitement of meeting these people and doing these things comes through, making it an interesting read. As I said, the stories about your brother and your dad and all of the involvement makes it an interesting book. And that's what I really liked about it.
Well, listen, I was not going to do a kiss and tell book. I didn't throw anybody under the bus. Have there been uncomfortable experiences? Have there been unpleasant experiences? Of course, in any business you're in. And in this business, maybe more so than others, because think about, you're a piece of talent. You know how difficult it is to be in front of the camera and perform for millions of people. I mean, it's a big deal. So I wanted to show, I was saying that there's so much more good than there is not good, but I didn't want to talk about the things I didn't want to mention. I wanted to mention all the great things, all the things were good, and I didn't want to mention all the things that weren't so good, but I mentioned some of them in a nice way. You know, I made them nice, but no kiss and tell, didn't throw anybody under the bus, and made it an enjoyable read. Every show that I did, it's interesting. The woman I wrote the book with is named Lauren Stevens. She was fantastic. She said to me in the very beginning, she said, I have a great idea when we do the chapters, all the chapters in the book about all the specials that you've done. She said, you've done almost 175 television specials. Yeah. She said, I have this great idea of the way to set it up. She said, but you got to tell me what your favorite television special was so that I can set this up the way I want. And there was quiet for a minute. And I said to her, Lauren, you're the mother of 3 children. Which one's your favorite? That was the end of that conversation.
I knew he didn't have a favorite. Just from what I've read, I went, he doesn't have a favorite. He enjoyed doing all of these. He enjoyed, even when things were going badly or somebody was terrible, you were still having a good time doing the show.
I did. I loved them all. They were all my children. Each one of them had a life of their own. And you take the bad with the good and you make it work. You know, my saying was always, every time before I did a show, every time in the final production meeting for a show, and every time before I went live on the air over the headset with 500 people on the other end of the headset, I would always say, everybody, good luck, have a good show. It's gonna be great. That was the last thing I always said. It's gonna be great. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we were on the air.
Brilliant.
But I just thought, you know, I wanted everything to be as good as it could possibly be. And I tried really hard to do that, especially with the talent that I work with, because I know how difficult it is to be on the other side of the camera. So I always wanted to.
Where can people read about you now? You have a website. I can't believe I'm out of time. This is like blown by. I feel like we should have padded those hours. I should have spaced for the.
Well, why don't you invite me back?
I'll back. We can do this again.
We can do this again. We can
do this again. Where's your website? Where can people find you so they can see what you're up to now?
Jeff Margolis Productions. Just Google Jeff Margolis Productions.
Well, we can do that. We can find you. Thank you for coming on. This has been a wonderful, like, heartwarming hour. Like I said, I knew just the sense of like joy and glee over producing and directing these things. It comes out of your book that this was going to be a fun interview to do. And yes, I'm going to have you back because we get to fill another couple of hours easily. It's gone over like the Oscars. So.
Right. I probably spoke too much. I'm sorry.
I'll have to play you off with music.
Right.
Coming, ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Margolis, and I'm Alison Arngrim. This is the Alison Arngrim Show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It really was good.
I found my way home.